All right, a very warm welcome to this session where we will discuss about EC2 instance pricing models or the EC2 purchasing options. So whenever we are creating a server, by default, the pricing model is called as the on-demand pricing model or the pay-as-you-go pricing model, where you're creating a server and based on the configuration that you have selected. Let's say you're selecting a server with two virtual CPUs and 8 GB of RAM. What happens is you will be billed only for the configuration that you have selected. And let's say that you're running that server for about 15 minutes. You'll be billed for the 15 minutes of usage. Let's say earlier, when you used to run these servers for about 15 minutes, the charges used to be on a per minute basis, but now that has been brought down to a per second basis. So in that case, even if you're running a server for, let's say, 15 minutes and 20 seconds, you'll be billed exactly for that much amount, right down to the per second mark. So what is an on-demand instance? So there are different types of purchasing options. The first one is the on-demand instance. So if you see, it says the on-demand instances are virtual servers in Amazon EC2 cloud that you pay for on an hourly or per second basis with no long-term commitments. This means that you can start them, stop them, terminate them whenever you want, and you'll be billed only for that much amount. So they offer flexibility, that is, it is suitable for short-term, irregular, unpredictable workload. So what does that mean? Now, many times whenever you are starting or testing an application, or you want to host a website, or you want to make something, some application available for several users, you don't know what kind of a load will be coming on the server. You don't know for how long you'll be running that server. You don't know how the server will behave based on the application that you're running, and the load will come in. So maybe you need to resize the server. Right now you're choosing an 8 GB server, but let's say that when you're testing it, you come to a conclusion that it would require a 16 GB server and more number of virtual CPUs. So in a testing environment, or let's say that you are trying to predict what will be the requirement, in those kind of cases you can use the on demand instance, where you're paying for the server without any long term commitment, or you want to start and stop it as per your requirement, right? In those cases, because it is very flexible, you can use on demand, and you can increase it and decrease it as per your requirement, because it is very scalable. So let's say that you are using it for an application, and you see that it is getting overloaded, the 8 GB server, you can increase it to 16 GB. So any unplanned workloads that you can interrupt anytime, you want to stop anytime, you want to stop your testing anytime, for those kind of cases you use on demand. And even that's why, even for our demos, of for our practice sessions, we use the on demand instances, because we use it only for as long as you want, and then you stop them. So what are the other options apart from the on-demand instances that you can use in terms of pricing models, right? So there are two more types. One is the reserved instance type, and the other one is spot instances. So we'll see what those means. The most commonly used form is the reserved instances form. Wherever you see an organization or any user who is using any workloads, that is the virtual machines, for a long term, they always use the reserved instances. Why is that? So whenever you're using a server as an on-demand pricing, the pricing is always high. So let me take you to the instances page. So this is where we create an instance, right? So let's say that this is my EC2 page, which you can come to from the AWS home screen. So if I come to instances and I click on launch instances, we always get this page where we can fill in certain information and we can launch a server, right? So this is where we have the instance type. When you are selecting an instance type here, by default it always goes to the on demand pricing. That means the pay as you go model. So based on what configuration you're selecting and for how long you're running, you will be charged for that. But let's say that you already know what kind of an application you're going to run. Let's say that you have already tested and you know what type of configuration that you require for your application. In that case, you already have the information that you need. and now you're going to deploy your application in such a way that the users are going to connect to it and use it. So that is called as a production environment, right, where the actual productivity is happening with the virtual machine. So let's take an example where you require a server which is two virtual CPUs and 8 GB of RAM. So you can select that. But when you let's say that you're going to run it for a very long time, let's say you're going to run it for the next 1 year, where all your users will be connecting to that server and accessing it. So if that server is in production, that means the actual real world users are connecting to it. You cannot ever shut that down, right? Because that will impact your business, because the users will not be able to access that application or the website, and that will impact your financials of your business. So we do not want that situation. So we know that this is a predictable workload, we know what is the configuration that we require, and we know that we want to run it for a long time. So in those kind of cases, what we do is we select something called as a reserved instance. So when you select a reserved instance, what is the advantage you have? The advantage you have is that you can get a highly discounted price. And what is the advantage that AWS gets? AWS knows that you are going to run this for a longer period of time, and that's why they will give you a discount. So think of it in such a way that let's say that you are going to a new city where you want to uh, rent a hotel room, right? So let's say that it's a very small town, and you are just negotiating on the price. There's not something that they have a fixed price or something. So let's say that you are negotiating on the price of the room. Let's say you want to stay there for only a night, right? Only one night. So he quotes the price as, let's say, $100 per night. So if you ask him to decrease the price or give you a discount, most probably he would not be interested in that, because you're staying there for only one night. But let's say you are willing to stay there for 10 nights, because you are there for a business meeting and you want to stay there for quite a long time. So if the regular price that he has for one night is $100, and you tell him that I want to stay here for 10 days, can you give me a discounted price? Of course he will give you a discounted price. So maybe let's say he'll give you a discount of 25% or 30%, whatever it is, right? So why is that? Because you are giving that hotel owner a business, a fixed business for 10 days, right? So if you stay there for only one day, maybe he won't have the assurance whether for the next 9 days there will be a customer or not. But if you are giving him a fixed business for the next 10 days, of course, he will give you a discounted price. So the same concept applies in AWS also. Let's say that you're committing to AWS that you want to use this particular virtual machine for 1 year, or however number of years. They know that they are going to get a continuous business from you, and that's why they give you a discount as well. And the discounts are quite high as well. So let's see, how do you calculate this discount? So whenever you see many corporates who have their entire infrastructure on AWS, they will always go for reserved instance pricing only. It is not only for EC2, it is available for other services also. So you just go to this particular tool called as AWS pricing calculator. You can just search on Google, you can get this link. So you come to AWS pricing calculator. So it helps you to estimate the cost for your architecture solution. So this includes all the different services, but we are going to specifically look into EC2 for now. So if I click on create estimate here, it takes me to which service do I want to add. So if you see under AWS, there are 153 services for which you can get a reserved pricing. So let's say that I'm going to search for a particular region. So whatever region you want, you can select. So here right now I'm choosing US East Ohio. You can search for this particular service, and you can add multiple services together, and you can create an estimate. And most of the times, whenever you are dealing with an organization, let's say that you are a consultant, you are dealing with an organization, or you are doing the pricing estimate for your own organization where you are part of the financial operations or something like that. In that case, this is how you create an estimate. You put all the different resources together, you check for the pricing, the discount, etc., and then you can present that to your approvers so that they can understand whether that is within our budget and all that, right? So here I'm going to select EC2. So I click on configure. Now it is going to ask me what type of EC2 configuration do you want for the reserved instance. Okay, so I go for shared instances. So there are different other types also, so dedicated instances, dedicated hosts, where you are not sharing your actual physical hardware in the AWS data center with anyone else. So when you're saying shared instances as your tenancy, what it means is in the AWS side, on the AWS data center side, on the same physical hardware, other users may also have their instances running in the same hardware. But of course, there are lots and lots of security and virtualization technologies running, which ensures complete security for your resources. But there will be certain cases or certain applications where there might be certain compliance and regulations requirements, which may force you to go for a dedicated tenancy. So let's say that if there is something confidential in terms of government systems or something like that, in that case, if there is a requirement, you can choose the tenancy as dedicated instances or dedicated hosts. Then you select the operating system. Let's say I'm selecting Windows Server at present. Then there are certain options, like if you have any prediction that you may have daily spike in traffic or weekly spike at certain times, maybe over the weekends or on a Friday evening or on a certain period of a month. Let's say that during the end of the month, your organization runs a particular sale on their e-commerce website or something like that. If there is a situation like that, you can select whether you want you predict daily spike traffic or weekly spike traffic or monthly spike traffic. Let's say that you are predicting only a constant usage. In that case, you select this. Then you say number of instances. So at present, for our example, I'm taking only one. So you see here there are 577 different types of EC2 instances you can select. At present, I've chosen T2.micro by default. Family is T2, and one virtual CPU and 0.5 GB of memory. Okay, so now once you select this, so these are all the different types of instances that you can select. Then you scroll down and you see here these are the payment options. So once you have selected the exact EC2 type that you want, these are the payment options. Now, if you see in the payment options or the savings plan, completely depends on the reservation term, which means how long do you want to reserve the instance for, right? Or if you're choosing multiple instances, how long do you want to select them for, right? And then there are payment options. So there are three different major payment options. One is no upfront, one is partial upfront, and one is all upfront. So these two, the combination of these two selections is what gives you the final pricing for the reserved instance. Let's say that you are choosing reservation term for 1 year. There will be a certain amount of discount that you will get, right, where you are not paying any upfront charges. So what does that mean? So if I select reservation term as 1 year, I will get a percentage of discount. Now let's say that I'm not paying anything upfront. That means I that amount will be distributed throughout the 12 months billing cycle, because all this is a annual charge, right? So let's say so here it is showing the monthly cost is $4.67 per month, right? So let's say that I'm going to select a particular higher configuration, so that it gives us a good idea about um, what could be the higher pricing. So let's say that I'm selecting 16 virtual CPUs, and let's say I'm selecting something like 128 GB of RAM. Okay, so this is the server that I'm selecting. So based on my requirement of 16 CPU and 128, let's say that I'm selecting something like the R5A. So I'm just selecting randomly one particular instance. Now, if I scroll down, you see the price comes to about $1,016.89 per month. Okay, so let's say this is the cost that I have for 1 year reservation and no upfront. So if I'm not paying anything upfront, this is the monthly cost, and the total cost is 1016.89 multiplied by 12, right? Because it's a monthly cost for 1 year. It gives you up to 66% discount. Now, if I select 3 years, you see immediately 3 years and no upfront cost, the price drops to $881.84 per month. Okay, so what did I select? I just changed the reservation term. So here I'm giving AWS only 1 year's worth of business, but when I select 3 years worth of business, they immediately increase the discount and they give me a lower pricing even further, right? Now let's say I'm selecting 1 year and no upfront, and then I'm saying partial upfront, correct? So I am paying a certain amount of that total cost upfront. So this will come in the first bill itself. So let's say I'm selecting that today. So in the first bill itself, this upfront cost will come up, and then the rest of the cost will be distributed further towards the 12 months. So I'm selecting 1 year and I'm saying partial upfront. Okay, so let's say the total cost is something like 1016.89 multiplied by 12, right? So now if I say partial upfront, if you calculate the total cost of this upfront cost and 497 multiplied by 12, the total cost would be lesser than the no upfront cost. Okay, and let's say that I'm saying all upfront. So if you see, for no upfront, the cost would be 1016.89 multiplied by 12. If I'm saying all upfront, that means in my first bill itself, I'm paying the entire cost. The total comes to 11,817.24. So if I say no upfront, it will easily go above and beyond, let's say around 12,200 something. But here, if I'm paying all upfront, it comes to only around 11,817. So this is only for one EC2 server, but if you have several in a corporate environment, in an enterprise environment, you will have hundreds or possibly even thousands of virtual machines running. And in that case, when you add up all these savings, the savings come up to a very large number. So in this case, even if you select, let's say I'm selecting 3 years no upfront, it comes to $881 per month. If I say partial upfront, it comes to this, and then if I say all upfront, it comes to around $30,000, $30,589.92. Okay, so this is how you can save the cost. You can go ahead and calculate it by yourself when you select the pricing calculator, and this is the compute savings plan. Okay, so again, compute savings plan, you have all the different compute options available, like EC2, Fargate, Lambda. These are the different types of compute options. So you have EC2 specific savings plan also. It works exactly the same way I explained right now. You can choose either 1 year term or 3 years term. You can choose whether you want to make the payment upfront or partial or all upfront. Okay, so this is how you get a discount. So in compute savings plan, you can get maximum of 66% of discount, and in EC2 you can get 72% of discount. So let's say I'm paying partial upfront. This is the amount that I have to pay, and then the rest of the 12 months, the monthly bill will be $400.77. Okay. So the overall thing that we need to understand is, whenever you are going to use a virtual machine over a long time, or you are going to use any other service for that matter for a long time, where you have a prediction of what is the exact configuration that you require and how long you want to use that for. In that case, you can go for reserved instances or reserved services, where AWS offers you a certain discount because you're giving them a predictable business for a certain amount of time. So that is called as reserved instance pricing, also as EC2 purchasing options or EC2 instance pricing models. And the third option that we have is called as the spot instances. So what is a spot instance? This is an option which you will select very rarely um, on a day-to-day corporate operations production wise, but mostly this kind of an option is used in testing environments where developers are testing different new options, where there is no productivity or there is no business loss possibility. So in spot instances, AWS has certain systems running in the backend which allows you to create these resources, and if there is available compute resources or other resources as well, they offer it to you for a highly discounted price, because those instances or those resources are anyways being unused, or they are not being used at present. So they can give it to you for a much lower cost. There are certain conditions for that. Let's see what those conditions are. So what is a spot instance? It is a virtual machine that offers significant cost saving up to 90% by using unused EC2 capacity. So rather than it being unused, they want to offer it to you for certain testing purposes or something at a very low cost. It's like a bidding system. So you can tell the system that this is the specific price that I want to pay. If that particular price is higher than this, don't give me a spot instance. But if it is lower than this, then you can configure a spot instance for me. So the only challenge is that if you run a development environment or a development application or something on this spot instance, then there is a possibility that if that cost goes up, that means that other users want to use that particular capacity at the full price. That means the on demand price. In that case, AWS can shut down your spot instance at any given time because it is getting a much higher price from those who are willing to pay the on demand price. So that's the basic concept behind it. As long as the capacity that AWS has for your EC2 instance is being unused, that means there are no specific users who are using it at that time, then it offers it to you at a very low cost. So let's see how do you actually create a spot instance. You just go to your AWS console here, and you go to your EC2 launch page. So here I can come in and create a new EC2 page. So the entire process remains the same as you would create an EC2 on demand virtual machine. But while you're creating that virtual machine, you just scroll down, and here under advanced details, you just scroll down, and you'll see that over here under purchasing options, you have a select option called as spot instances. Okay, so if you do not select any purchasing option, if you select none, it will go into the on demand pricing where you have to pay for every second that you're using it. But if you select spot instances, it requests it requests a spot instance at the spot price capped on the on demand price. So you just select this, and if you want, you can customize the options also. You can set what is the maximum price that you are willing to pay for it. So let's say whatever is the price, let's say it is $1 per hour in the regular on demand price, but let's say that you are selecting here that I want to set the cost as 20 cents per hour or something like that, right? So in that case, if the spot instance price comes below that, it will immediately spin up a server for you. But if it is staying above that, it will not. So if you require multiple servers, you can have a set of uh, on demand servers, and then you can have additional servers which are spot instances, which are at a much lower cost. So we'll see this in practical way later on when we are seeing something called as auto scaling group. But here all you need to understand is there is an option called as spot instances, which allows you to use unused capacity from AWS data center side for a very low cost. So in this case, you can use it for development and different types of trials and practice sessions where you pay a very low cost. And the only major drawback being that if some other user is willing to create a virtual machine at that same time, then that unused capacity will of course go to that user because they are willing to pay a higher cost, right? So in that case, your instance which you are running a test on, or you're doing some development work, in that case, that virtual machine can be stopped with just 2 minutes notice. So it will give you a notice saying that this virtual machine will be deleted within the next 2 minutes. So you can just save your work or whatever you're doing, and then you can let go of that. So of course, there are many advantages to this as well. There are certain disadvantages, but how to smartly use it, there are many ways that you can use it very smartly. We'll see that in the auto scaling group sessions later on. Okay, so these are the different pricing types. The major one being the reserved instances, which is used by most of the organizations because they have a very predictable and long-term plan for their cloud infrastructure. Second option is the on-demand instances, which we use for unpredictable loads for certain period of time, which we do not know for how long we want to use. And then there are spot instances just for testing purposes, development purposes, where you don't have exactly any issues where if the server is shut down suddenly. Those are, in those cases, you use spot instances. So these are the instance pricing models or purchasing options. I hope this was an informative session for you. Thank you for watching.